Welcome to part 2 of our 3-part webinar series on achieving mindfulness, dancing with the dragon, building resilience in the midst of crisis, with the Honorable Judge Robert L. Butch Childers and the Honorable Judge Stephen C. Hornsby. Judge Robert L. Butch Childers is a retired judge. Having spent 33 years on the bench, he currently maintains an active mediation arbitration practice. He has taught extensively on mindfulness, building resilience, and vicarious trauma. He is the immediate past president of the National Executive Council for the University of Memphis Alumni Association. Judge Stephen C. Hornsby has served for 39 years as a trial lawyer, judge, senior state government official, healthcare executive consultant, and coach. His efforts throughout all of these careers have been to help people and improve systems. In 2004, Judge Hornsby was the recipient of the McCain Abernathy Award, the highest award given to a Tennessee juvenile court judge. At the age of 16, Steve learned a meditation practice which began a lifelong study of human consciousness, brain science, and spirituality. He is a certified leadership and life coach and works with professionals using a mindfulness and strength-based approach. Steve also works with organizations facilitating executive meetings and retreats. He received his undergraduate law degree from the University of Memphis. He holds dual certifications in leadership and life coaching from Coach for Life. He is a trained circle process facilitator and graduate of the Silva Method of Mindfulness Training. Welcome, Judge Childers and Judge Hornsby.
Thanks so much, Willie. Welcome to everybody to the second session on building resilience in stressful times. As a reminder, your chat function is disabled for the webinar. We do welcome questions, however. If you have any questions, there is a Q&A function at the bottom of your screen below. And so any questions you have, please put your questions in at any point, and we're going to save about 10 minutes at the end to hopefully answer all your questions. So with that, Steve, let's get started with Dancing with the Dragon.
Well, let's do that, Butch. First, I would like to extend my welcome to everyone that's listening in and will be listening in on the recorded versions of it later in time. And so what I would like to do, Butch, is start off with practicing what we preach. And that is that I would like to invite everyone, and along with you and me, into a moment of reflection and getting still and taking a nice deep breath. And exhaling, letting it go out, and moving into a more reflective frame and state of mind. And we know from research, what research tells us about the effects of gratitude are tremendously positive. Feeling and reflecting on what we're grateful for, as my mother and my grandmother would have said, counting our blessings, is very, very helpful in moving us into shifting our mood from being stressed and worried and anxious and fearful and that sort of thing into a place of where we are more present and where we are more compassionate to ourselves and compassionate to others. So what I would like to do at this point, I would like to invite everyone to think about, just take a moment now and reflect on our gratitude for our alma mater. And I'm quite serious about that. I have tremendous gratitude for, back then it was Memphis State University, what my diplomas say, from 1978 in undergrad and 1981 from law school. And you know, what I'm really grateful for is that I had I got a quality education at a very, very affordable price. Back then, the tuition for undergraduate semester was like $195, unheard of today. And even law school, when I started law school, was like $525 a semester. And not only that, it gave me a tremendous experience in being, I was active in student government, and I made friends. I got to know people that I have maintained friendships with throughout my life. I can honestly, truthfully say that my experience at the University of Memphis changed my life for the better, very significantly, very significantly. And I have deep gratitude. Butch?
Steve, I'm sort of like you. I am extremely grateful, and I've actually said this any number of times for the education that the university. I go back further than you, Steve. My first tuition I paid in February of 1967 was $62.50. Back in the day, it was very inexpensive. However, that was a lot of money to me in 1967. And so, but I wouldn't have been able to become a lawyer. I later went to the Memphis Law School, or to become a judge and had a long career, 33 years on the bench as a judge, which was very rewarding for me. But I couldn't have done that without this university. So I am eternally grateful for that.
Yeah, same here. Same here, particularly for those of us that come from working class families, working class backgrounds. We were able to do that. So very good. Well, thank you. And I hope everyone out there is just really taking a moment to reflect on the gratitude you have for the University of Memphis. So moving into our topic for today, the dragon. Now, what in the world does a dragon have to do with talking about building resilience and mindfulness and achieving mindfulness in our time? Well, let's get into that. So here I'm going to go into the work of Joseph Campbell, who was a 20th century mythologist and wrote a book, became famous to a certain extent, called The Hero with a Thousand Faces. And what Joseph Campbell did was he studied the much of the mythology from around the world, all cultures from every continent and throughout time, going back into antiquity, all the way on up, even into modern times. In fact, he served as the advisor to George Lucas on the Star Wars, the very beginning of the Star Wars trilogy at that time, the trilogy. As the advisor for the mythology, for all of the concept of the Force and the connection with something greater and bigger than oneself and all that. But what Joseph Campbell did was he said that the mythologist, the mythology that has arisen throughout history is really an allegory for the journey that we all take throughout life. And that the various adventures and challenges and adversities and trials and tribulations that the hero would face along the way were illustrative of the things that we encounter, and also of what how we can find the characteristics and the skills within ourselves to encounter those and to address them and in fact rise above them. So the dragon. Now, the dragon was typically the most frightful and the most challenging of all the adversities that the hero would face. And so typically the dragon would be, living in some land and terrorizing the countryside and the villages, and the townspeople would do things, whatever they could. They would, of course, run and hide when they heard the dragon coming to avoid it. Or they would try to placate it. They would, submit offerings to the dragon, and food and perhaps even human sacrifice and that sort of thing. And so, in facing the dragon and trying to to do something with the dragon for the benefit of the people, the hero was required to find new skills and to dig down deep into the well of courage, deeper than they ever had before. So that was the challenge that the hero would always face, and it would always bring up something new. The hero would learn something new about themselves, and in overcoming and dealing with the dragon. And so we're facing dragons today. We have dragons that we face from society as well as our own personal dragons. Butch?
So the societal fears that we face, on the left-hand column of the slide, you know, for the last 4+ months, we've all been dealing with the added stresses of the pandemic, the COVID-19 virus. We all deal with, particularly now, the last 4 or 5 months, the isolation that has resulted from that, the unemployment issues that a lot of us are facing. We now, on top of that, we have the issues dealing with racism and social injustice that has taken place, again, like the pandemic, all over the world, not just in this country. We have certainly the civil unrest that has resulted from that. We've got the polarization, the racial polarization, the political polarization. We've got issues, financial issues involving the economy and the slowdown in the economy. We've got, of course, again, the political ramifications of the upcoming election in November. We've got environmental concerns with global warming and clean air and clean water and that sort of thing. We've got certainly all over the world global instability. And the result of all that, and the big stressor as a result of all of those societal issues we're facing, is the uncertainty of it all. And that's what causes all of the stress that we're all having to face.
Yeah, and so the that final one there that Butch mentioned, the uncertainty is, if you could frame up, so many of the fears and anxieties and worries that we have kind of falls under that category of the uncertainty. And we find ourselves trying to control, we find ourselves trying to manipulate the outer circumstances and manipulate or control life to avoid all of that. However, the truth of it is that we cannot. The whole idea that we are in control is in fact an illusion. But what we do is we tend to try to create our comfort zone so that we don't have to face dragons, so that dragons don't come into our particular world that we have studiously and carefully crafted and constructed. However, again, the truth of that is that that's an illusion, because the circumstances of life are going to happen. They're going to present things to us. Who would have predicted that even, 8 months ago, 7 months ago, that we would be in the midst of a global pandemic? Now, some people did. The epidemiologists and the virologists and those folks kind of knew something was going to come at some point in time. But for the most of us, we're blissfully going along and dealing with our regular daily concerns and our personal concerns that we have. But what happens is that when our comfort zone is threatened, is that then exacerbates all of our own latent fears and insecurities, our thoughts and fear that we're inadequate, which has really become a prevalent issue now for many people. There's even a new term called the imposter syndrome, where we feel like we are in a position, in a situation, our work, or perhaps in a relationship, whatever it may be, and we're the wrong person for it, and that we feel like we're an imposter showing up. And then as well, all of our whatever latent feelings we may have, none of us are perfect. We all have things that we may be ashamed about, things that we feel guilty about, and things that we feel like perhaps that we're unworthy of. So all of the outer circumstances really exacerbate those internal things that we have going on, because the real issue about all this is that what's going on outside is one thing, but what's going on the inside is what we really have to come to terms and what we have to deal with. So looking
go back to that last slide for just a second.
Yeah, okay.
I just wanted to add, on the personal fears, worries, and anxieties, even on the outside, some folks you may see acting with a lot of bravado. But the truth is, everyone has those same feelings. All of us. inside have those same feelings of insecurity, inadequacy, a lack of control, uncertainty, and the shame, guilt, and unworthiness of, I'm not worthy. We all strive for perfection, and we are human beings, and none of us can ever achieve perfection. And so the key to me is you're not in this alone. We're all in the same boat with those issues.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly, Butch. These are things that are common, and our sense of unworthiness will make us look at someone out there and they appear to be living the perfect life. Oh gosh, they've got everything together. They're so accomplished, or they've been successful. They have tons of money and all that sort of thing. And just like you said, the truth of it is that, they're struggling with these things too, just in a different way. So resilience, let's look at the definition of resilience. I love this definition from physics: the capability of a strained body to recover its size and shape after deformation that's caused by compressive stress. So I've got the picture there of the palm tree, and and I want to make you aware of the fact that the design, the shape of a palm tree, and the fact that it's able to be resilient and bend way over like that is no accident. Over eons of time, palm trees are the trees that you see in coastal areas because they have developed that way. They've developed and responded and adapt to those harsh conditions that can often come along the coast, the winds that are so prevalent all the time. You don't see many oak trees or great big majestic hickory trees down there along the coast. Probably several reasons for that, but certainly one of them is that when a hurricane comes along, well, we've seen pictures of what they look like. And Butch, I know we've talked about Hurricane Elvis that happened here back about 10 years ago when those straight line winds came through, and so many of those beautiful hardwoods along East Parkway were all over East Parkway. They had gotten uprooted, the limbs had come down and all that, because they're not suited for that. They're not developed for that. But so in thinking about resilience, there's actually a process that occurs. One is encountering that stress, being there in the circumstances of it, in the environment of it, and then absorbing the stress and flexing with it. And then when you see that palm tree leaned over like that, it's actually gathering the energy from all the wind that's coming at it. So there's energy that is built up in the tree trunk there from that stress. And then when the time is right, releasing that stress and springing back into shape. So flexibility is a hallmark of resiliency. Rigid structures that cannot flex and adapt under stress will break. And so there in that picture from the devastation of a hurricane, we see what happened to all those dwellings that were down there made of 2x4s and even brick. You see chunks of brick laying around that were completely blown away. I mean, completely wiped out. And there's the person standing there. She's experiencing that stress as well. So this picture to me is so relevant in that it shows the effects of stress on both the buildings that were present as well as a human being. Butch, did you have any comments on that one?
Well, the only comment I have, Steve, is the lady there standing with her face in her hands sobbing. It just strikes me that the choice is she may go into a deep, dark depression from this devastation and despair that she's experiencing. And again, that's a part of life. Those things happen. Our loved ones and friends pass on, they die. And we have to deal with that. So the choice would be, if she's not resilient, falling into a deep, dark depression, or in bouncing back and saying, that happens in life. and I'm going to make the best of it. You know, you've seen people interviewed on TV after hurricanes, and they say, you know, we are just thankful to God that we're still alive, that nobody was killed. And that's sort of the resiliency aspect of reacting to the misfortunes that we have to deal with and the catastrophes we have to deal with in life.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and I would just like to say too that that picture is also a good analogy for how we create our comfort zones. We tend to create and construct our lives. Sometimes we do it consciously, sometimes we do it subconsciously. But we create a kind of a zone around ourselves that we deem to be struggle-free or challenge-free. And the reality of that is that it cannot hold. In doing that, we have developed a degree of our own mental rigidity. And then when something happens that intrudes upon our comfort zone, when that beautiful vacation home gets blown away, then all of a sudden it's disrupted. So one thing I love to do is looking at the etymology of words. And the Latin root word for resilience is salire, which means, it was so interesting to see this when I looked this up, which means to jump, to leap, or to dance. To jump, to leap, or to dance. And if y'all can see the silhouette that's there to the right of the screen, it looks like somebody's in a dance pose. That's actually a yoga pose, which is the warrior pose. And also that is so similar, if anyone's done martial arts, you know that when you are in a position in karate or jiu-jitsu or whatever it may be, you are in a flex position. Your knees are flexed. Your center of gravity is located over your hips, so you can move quickly and agilely and nimbly, almost as if you were dancing. So it is very much like doing a dance. One of the preeminent researchers along the lines of mindfulness, resilience, effects of meditation, human consciousness and also neuroscience is a psychiatrist by the name of Dan Siegel. He's at the University of California at Los Angeles, UCLA, Center for Mindful Awareness. And he is also the author of quite a number of books. One of those is Mindsight. And he developed an acronym for a resilient system. It can be a human being, it can be an organization, it can be the environment. But what he has observed is using the FACES acronym that these components are inherent within resilient systems. There's flexibility, there's adaptableness, they are coherent, meaning that the system will stay together over a period of time. There is energy within it. It's an energized and it is stable. And so in terms of thinking about our own type of resilience when we're facing the dragon, we can look at that as almost like a paradigm for going into the dance with the dragon. So a quote here from Joseph Campbell, because at this point we come up going back to that illusion of our comfort zone that we create. You know, we don't usually voluntarily get out of that, but when we're confronted with scary things in life, what we exactly have to do is turn and face that and actually go into it. So in a lot of the mythology of the heroes, typically the dragon lived in some dark cave or someplace almost subterranean quarters, and it required the hero to go into this deep, dark, foul-smelling place, usually a repulsive place. However, it was going in there that the hero had to dig down deep into that well of courage to do that. But also in there was what they were seeking to encounter. There was a reason that they were going in there, but they had to confront that fear. And in confronting that fear and getting beyond it, we have to realize that there is something that is to the benefit of not only ourselves, but perhaps the greater good. Our loved ones, our family, our company, our organization, our law firm. If we encounter those and look at them as opportunities, because within that opportunity, we will learn things about ourselves. Sharing something from my own experience about comfort zone. I've observed in my life that when I have wrapped myself up in my comfort zone, over a period of time, what happens is that I find out that it's really become a prison. Because when we're in our comfort zone, we have a tendency to want to stay there. And we begin to eliminate, and often we do this subconsciously, we eliminate things that may be threats to that or that could risk that comfort zone. And what happens is that sometimes we find that comfort zone shrinking and it gets smaller and smaller. And in fact, at one point, it can even become a prison of our own making until something, either outside circumstances, break it apart, invade, come in and blow things away, or we realize it ourselves and we voluntarily say, it's time for me to break out of this. I've got to do something different. So in terms of facing the dragon of adversity with resilience, the first thing we have to do is turn and face it. We have to look at that, look at the challenge, the adversity, and do not engage in avoiding or placating it. The villagers, I was, in the analogy of the dragon, the villagers and the people living in the countryside that were being terrorized by the dragon, they only had two ways of dealing with it, or they thought they did. And what they did was typically avoid it. When they hear the dragon coming, they would run and hide, or they would placate it. They would give sacrifices. They would give tribute to it, hopefully trying to just make it go away. And that's typically many times what we do. We'll take great pains to avoid that uncertainty, to avoid that those difficulties that are facing us, or we then just try to do what we can just to get by. Just get by. Maybe it'll pass. Maybe it'll go away, instead of turning and facing it. And when we do that, when we turn and face it, then we have to feel that emotional shock. When we do that, and there's a whole piece of work that maybe we can do in a later series, Butch, about developing emotional intelligence, about learning how to use our own emotions, not as a negative thing, but in a very positive way, even the ones that feel bad, in a very positive way, and then learning how to become flexible and adaptable with them. Then, when we have done that, we're able to turn that shock and that emotion into our own personal insights and energy, like the palm tree that's laid over to its side. The energy to then engage with that adversity and learn from it, and seeing it as a teacher that will make us stronger, wiser, and more whole. So we can say that we can even allow the dragon to transform us. This is an old saying, goes back into antiquity. They don't really know exactly who to attribute it to, but many writers in the 20th century and even modern say this, that pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. And that can refer to the fact that whatever that adversity that we're encountering brings to us, physical pain, emotional pain, financial pain, you name it, that happens. That's the outside circumstances bringing pain to us. However, suffering is totally up to us. We can continue to suffer and we can berate ourselves, or we can say, woe is me. We can be the victim, and we can, the wailing and gnashing of teeth for as long as we want to, but that's up to us. That's not mandatory. How we deal with that adversity is totally within our control. We can't control what may come to us. That's an illusion. Controlling that is an illusion. But what we do within ourselves, the inner work that we do, and what we can do within our locus of control physically, is totally up to us.
Steve, I just want to emphasize this pain is inevitable, suffering is optional idea. It's part of the teaching of increasing your resilience is the lesson to experience the pain. Don't avoid it. Don't try to numb out. I've got own experience earlier in my life, in my family dynamics, of trying to avoid all pain, to numb out. And the problem with that is if you numb out from the pain, you tend to numb out all of your emotions. And in order, I've experienced in my life, in order to experience the highs, you have to have experienced the lows. You have to have been really sad in order to feel real true joy, and the extremes. You've sometimes heard, I've sometimes heard people say after the loss of a loved one, well, it's time to throw yourself back into your work, sort of get over it and move on. And our suggestion is to experience that pain, to grieve, as it's completely normal for people to grieve any loss in life. And again, the lesson here is that life happens. It's going to happen. You're going to experience those things. So ride with that feeling, go with that feeling, experience it fully through the use of mindfulness and meditation in order to grow from it.
Yeah, precisely, Butch. And you can even think of it as, and in fact, there in some mindfulness studies, this is taught, is begin training our mind to look at any of those challenges from even the smallest things, getting cut off in traffic, or maybe one of your coworkers being in a bad mood and just being a little snippy or whatever, from some of those small things, even up to the greatest things that we can be willing to turn and look at that and then catalyze us. And here's the key: to turn not outwards in many times our almost like an automatic reaction to try to further control what's going on outside, but use it as a catalyst to turn inward and look inside to see what is going on within us. So another good researcher here, Carol Dweck, developed the concept of mindset. And so as a result of, her research, I believe she was at Harvard or Yale, one of them, and, discovered some fascinating things. But she had groups of people doing different situations, different things, subjecting them to adversity and seeing what they were, how they responded to it. And she came up with a very helpful theory around what she calls mindset, and how our mindset is what has a tremendous influence on the outcomes that we that may result when we're in difficult situations. And so she came up with two different types of mindsets. One is called a growth mindset. The other is called a fixed mindset. The growth mindset, people that come from that place see themselves as being able to adapt to challenges, and that they have the ability to learn and grow. They almost have like this learner attitude throughout life. They also believe and know and then act. They also know that they have the ability to impact those circumstances, that they can take that and learn from it and grow into it. Good example is just taking a test. The people that have a growth mindset will want to learn from that test. They want to know what I didn't answer correctly. I want to know what that is so I can learn and grow from it. People with a fixed mindset believe that they don't have that ability. They tend to fall back to a position of that it's almost like they only have their God-given talents or strengths that they may have, and there's no way to improve or change that. And so they look at it as being, well, I did the best I could do, and that's all I could do, and there's no way that I could improve or grow from it. What happens is that in the reactions or the responses of these two types of people, is that those in a fixed mindset will then tend to avoid, just like our comfort zone, they will tend to avoid circumstances that may over challenge them, that they don't feel like that they know from the outset that they can immediately overcome. They'll just avoid it altogether. And then they wind up protecting what they have accumulated, or what they may have felt like is their ability. They will move to a place of avoidance and reversion rather than engagement and moving forward.
Okay, so as we talked about in the first session, the key to mindfulness and meditation is awareness, increasing our awareness and our focus. And we have learned through the thousands of neuroscience studies that habitual thought patterns can be changed through the neuroplasticity of the brain. And so when we're able to change our thoughts, to expand our brains and change our thoughts, we can change our response to adversity.
And and so it's so interesting. I want to go back to that for just a second. In thinking about the trees, going back to like the palm trees and the oak trees. When we have that fixed mindset, we are kind of like the oak, that it's strong, and all that, but it's not flexible. And so it's great for, using it for houses, great for creating shade and all that sort of thing. But what happens is that rigidity, when we have that rigidness in our thinking, is that we tend to hunker down. If you can think of it as like I'm going to force this to happen, or I'm just going to hunker down and ride it out, and I'm not going to be open to what could be benefits that may even come from it. So we close ourselves off rather than opening ourselves up.
Okay, so I love this illustration to illustrate what we talked about in the first session. You remember we talked about the carousel of thoughts. I'll call it head noise. Some people call it monkey mind, where we got these hundreds, if not thousands, of thoughts swirling around in our brains each and every day. And it's difficult. It's like grabbing for the brass ring on the carousel. You can't really reach out and grasp any one particular thought, because you've got all these thoughts swimming around in our heads every day. And so through meditation and the mindfulness, and the meditation is the key part really of mindfulness for this, is to quiet our brains, to get rid of all of the noise. So we have, after the meditation piece, and hopefully we can practice it at least for a few minutes every day, you've got many fewer thoughts in your head. So it's easy to grasp and focus on a particular thought during the day, and to deal with it, again, much more efficiently, much more quickly, and usually much more accurately. And so, again, meditation is the key, and it opens the gateway to the awareness that we're striving for.
So we put this slide in here just to kind of like clarification of terms, so that y'all would know what we're talking about, because you may be wondering, what's the difference between meditation and mindfulness? What is that? And so basically, meditation is the time that we spend focusing our attention on a focal point, such as your breath, or a mental phrase, or an image, or even soft, very good music for it, and tuning out the external stimuli. And when we do that, we're able to observe our inner landscape, the thoughts, the sensations, other phenomena that may be going on immediately in our surroundings, or inside of us. What are these thoughts that keep coming up? What I keep telling myself? Why am I worried? Where is this anxiety coming from? Why does this person annoy me to no end? Whatever it may be. But when we practice meditation, what we're doing Butch, like we know, you and I love to talk about the neuroscience behind all this, and that has come out really since the 1990s. In fact, I heard a researcher the other day, I think it was Dan Siegel, talk about how the 90s has now become known as the decade of the brain, because so much brain research came out. And what we know is that the brain builds neural pathways, almost like muscles, almost like going to the gym. Wherever we focus our attention, neural pathways develop within our brain. So if we spend time meditating, we are learning how to develop the ability to go into this place of peaceful, calm awareness. And so that mindfulness is being able to go to that place at any time that we want to throughout the day, whatever circumstance we may be, wherever we may be, wherever we are. We can go to that same place that we arrived at when we were meditating. Perhaps not as long, don't have to do it as long, but we can get to that inner state of awareness. So the way to think about this is that practicing meditation helps bring about mindfulness.
And so this is a slide of a dendrite in our brain. You see all the little branches branching out from the nucleus in blue there in the dendrite. And brain scientists have told us through the practice of meditation, they can literally show pictures of new branches that are formed in the dendrites, new neural pathways, again, to expand our brains to be able to break some of the old thought patterns and create new thought patterns. And so neurons that fire together, wire together. And the key is meditating, 10 to 20 minutes a day changes our brain. And so that's the goal.
And so when we do that, when we take the time, set aside time, and we make the effort to go to practice meditation, build those neural pathways, those neurons that are firing together and wiring together, then we can do it willfully when we choose to. And so I recommend to my clients, my coaching clients, I use a mindfulness practice with my clients, is to put it on your calendar. So many of us are creatures of our calendar. 3 times a day, morning, early afternoon, maybe late afternoon, or in the evening. And these are mindful moments. This is different for your meditation practice. 3 times a day for 3 minutes at a time. And I'll tell you, I have used this for decades now. And I do it before, and particularly I do it intentionally if I know that I've got a stressful situation coming up. A meeting that where I know I've got to have my A game on, or meeting with some people that I know are going to be difficult. There's going to be a challenge there. I've used it preparing for trial. I've used it going out. One of the most stressful things I've ever encountered is testifying before the Tennessee General Assembly when I'm representing a state agency that has some where we've not been as kind, or people have not been as kind to us as probably they could have been, but having to go over there and explain what we do, and knowing that there's people on that panel of probably 20 people up there that are laying in wait for me, that are ready to ambush me, whatever it may be, and being able to maintain calm and serenity when I'm doing that. And so it is very useful, it's very helpful to practice it throughout the day. And the observer being our superpower. And this is a point when you've meditated for a while, and really it doesn't take that long, you'll learn how to do it, is to get to that place to where you can detach from what all may be going on from out there. I call it detach from the drama, detach from all the outside drama. And you learn how to then look at things almost as if you were kind of above it a little bit, and you're looking at it, looking down at things, seeing how things are playing out, and then coming from a place of choice and truly responding rather than a place of automatic reaction to it. So the observer comes when we spend time meditating, and then we can become the observer. We don't have to go into a phone booth to do it, but we can become the observer at any time throughout the day that we choose to. Another good aspect of this is engaging with more reflection practices like self-inquiry and journaling. They expand, both of those expand our self-awareness, and they facilitate meaning. So this is kind of a quick soapbox I'm going to get on here, because I know that we got to be mindful of time here. You know, y'all, we live in a world that is overwhelmed with distractions, more so than at any other time in our history. A friend of mine said the other day she went into a restaurant. Well, this is before the pandemic. She went into a restaurant in Nashville, and in that restaurant, there were 11 television sets, all going, all bombarding stuff. Our devices, our phones have been created to encourage us to pick them up so that we will look at them, so that then there's some advertisement or whatever it may be that has come up that will encourage us to buy something. So in order to do this, in order to find meaning in life, we have to put down the distractions, turn away from the outside world, and turn to the inner world. You know, we often hear the question, what is the meaning of life? Well, I want to flip that to the question of what is life without meaning? But that's where we're finding ourselves. Now, more than ever, we're distracted, carried outward, and what happens is that we then have a superficial experience of life. Our experience of life becomes shallower rather than deeper. So it is in encountering the adversity that we actually discover more about who we are, the meaning that we give to life, living from our values, from our own sense of purpose, who we are, asking the question of who I am and what do I stand for, where do I live from, the importance of finding our own voice, not the other voices that surround us and are telling us what to do, what to think, buy this, buy that, engage in this. This is the lifestyle you want. Oh, come over here. There's happiness over here. We have to reclaim our own ability to find that meaning by turning within and being who we are. When we do that, and even encountering adversity, when we do that, then life, the meaning of life, begins to reveal itself in the dance, so that we become the dancer that is dancing with the dragon. And here you'll notice that this is a dragon from Chinese mythology. So different from the Western mythology dragon, where the dragon was really the personification or embodiment of evil. In Chinese mythology, the dragon is actually a celestial being. It's a noble creature, capable of great things, great transformation. The dragon is wise and benevolent and just. And when people came into an encounter with a dragon in Chinese mythology, they were blessed from it. And that is the challenge that we can take on in terms of the way that we look at adversity, is seeing it as the opportunity for a blessing, that there's a blessing hidden inside of it, but engaging with it as that beautiful ballerina does there with dance. And so it really comes down to then about dancing with it all. Life is complex, y'all. We have everything you can imagine. We have uncertainty and we have laughter. We have sorrow and we have peace. We have heartbreak and tragedy, and we have creativity, and we can be wise, and we can look at others and ourselves with kindness and compassion. So the challenge then is to dance with all of it and not allow ourselves to become stuck in what we try to contrive and try to conceive as our safety zone or our comfort zone, but knowing that we have the ability and we're capable of dancing with all of it.
This is a great illustration, Steve, of what life is. This is life. You know, we all are exposed to these things and we never know when they're coming. You know, we're not in a movie or a play. There's no script. And so it's helpful for all of us to learn to be more resilient. And we do that again through the meditation, which leads to the mindfulness. So let's do a quick, because we're almost out of time. We don't want to run out of time for questions. Let's do a quick meditation. I'm going to invite you to close your eyes, put your feet on the ground so you're sort of grounded, and the focus on your breathing. Deep breath. Inhale, hold it. Exhale, long exhale. Then hold your exhale and then inhale again. I started out with meditation using a 24-second clock, like they use in the basketball games. And I would count 24, 23, 22, 21. And once I had a stray thought that would pop into my mind, and invariably we do during a meditation, is I would start the clock all over again. I never reached zero on the clock. I don't have to use a clock anymore. I sort of automatically go into my deep breathing. So deep inhalation, hold it for a second or two. Exhale, hold it for a second or two. Focus on your breathing. I sometimes do a body scan. Start at the top of your head and just concentrate, focus on relaxing the top of your head. And let your face relax and your ears relax. And your shoulders, focus on your shoulders, letting them relax and drop down. Let your arms relax, your wrists, your fingers, and your hands relax. Feel them consciously relaxing as you focus on your inhalation and your exhalation. Your midsection, your rib cage, your torso, focus on complete relaxation as you deep breathe in and you exhale. Focus on relaxing your hip muscles, your thigh muscles, your knees, your legs, your calves, down your ankles and your feet and your toes. Just focus on all the parts of your body. Just do a little body scan and relax as you go from the top of your head to the end of your toes. Inhale and exhale. When you have a stray thought, let it go. Acknowledge it's there, let it go, and return to the focus on your breathing. Inhale and exhale. You can feel your blood pressure start to drop. It gets lower. The tension should leave your body. Well, again, for the sake of time, we're going to end the meditation. Again, it's a really quick exercise. As Steve said, when I was on the bench every morning before I left my chambers, I took a moment to relax and deep breathe. And it really increased my focus and attention on the bench and made me, give me the ability to make quicker decisions and usually more accurate decisions and move on from one matter to the next.
Yeah, I would echo that. What Butch said, I did it as well. I used it in court and it was tremendous help for me. So here's our resource page. On the left side, you'll see all these meditation apps that are out there. So devices are not totally bad. They're good for something. And they're quite good. In fact, I use Insight Timer. I've also used Calm. And most of these have got some free version of them. Like, you get a little limited thing that you can do, and then you can, upscale up to, they will upsell you up to the premium version of it. But Insight Timer is completely free, and it's got talks and long meditations, short meditations, sound effects, all that sort of thing. And then on the right-hand side of the screen are a number of really good websites. The wonderful thing is there's now so much science out there that supports all this. The Greater Good Science Center at the UC Berkeley, UCLA Mindful Awareness Center, that's where Dan Siegel is, and also MindSight That's his nonprofit. The Heart Math Institute, another very good nonprofit. Mindful.org is Mindful Magazine, as well as their whole website. So you can check any of those out. Those are excellent resources. This is just a tiny sampling. There's tons of stuff out there, tons of stuff.
Okay, Steve, let's get to the questions. We've got at least three pending. And the first one actually is what you just talked about as resources. Nicholas asks, can you suggest any local mindfulness meditation teachers or mentors in Memphis? I'm interested in all forms, but particularly in Vipassana. Thanks. So
well,
Steve?
Yeah. Of course, I know that there's a number of some of the yoga studios. I know Delta Groove has a number of things. They have a number of different teachers coming in, but there's a lot of them at many of the yoga studios. My coaching practice, I teach a mindfulness method. You can go to my website, which is judgehornsby.com, and there's a free about a 15, 18-minute meditation on there you can listen to, but that's something that I teach with my clients as well. And Butch and I are hearing more about this. Another colleague of ours, Cindy Pinsino, who's also a yoga teacher and another attorney, she does yoga and also teaches this. So we're seeing more of this come up, and I think there may be a need for making more of this public, Butch.
Yep. All right, two more questions. Barbara asked, these have been great sessions. Thank you for hosting them. I wanted to ask if I could receive the PowerPoints from last month's webinar as well as today's webinar. Thank you. Willie Clark, I think they have already sent that out, hopefully. If not, I'll ask Willie to make sure, our great assistant here from the Alumni Association, to make sure that everybody has gotten the first session PowerPoint slides, and also you'll receive the slides from today as well as a reminder tool. And so the third question from Yvonne is what Judge Hornsby describes going into that meditation place, similar to what I refer to as compartmentalize. Steve?
I don't know. I think that would require a longer conversation for me to be sure that I know what you may be talking about. Compartmentalizing can mean different things to different people. What I would say, that kind of like the way that I describe it, is that it is going to a quieter place. Actually, rather than compartmentalizing, to me, the experiences that many meditators talk about is that it's actually a broader, it's rather than being compartmentalized, it's actually a broader experience to where you see things more broadly and kind of like you're maybe up above it a little bit. I hope that's helpful.
Diana asked, can you go back to the slide before, what is life without meaning? Unfortunately, because of our time constraints today, we can't. But again, I hope Willie Clark will be sending out, I expect he will be sending out those slides so you can go back through those. And again, you can review the recorded session. They'll be available on the line on the University of Memphis website. Adriana asked, could prayer make the same effect as meditation? And my answer, Steve, would be absolutely. Prayer is a form of meditation.
Yeah, Butch, that's a great question. It is, although there's a little bit different twist to it. I've heard folks in the Christian community refer to, and people that also incorporate meditation. Prayer is when you're talking to God. Meditating is when you're listening to God. So it's a little bit different stance, but it is very much the same place. Yeah, the same frame of mind. Exactly. I love the quote from Psalms 46, be still and know that I am God.
And the final question, do you have to be licensed? Wayne asked, do you have to be licensed to be a life coach, Steve?
You don't have to be. I recommend it. I believe in credentialing, so you know that you're working with somebody that is trained. I just believe that that's just the way to go. But the International Coaches Federation, the ICF, you can go to their website. They talk about that, and I would recommend you go look at that and check it out. Some people have natural talents for it, but there's still things to learn. And I would recommend, if you're going to do that, use somebody that is trained and has been through a certified coaching program.
And so you have our contact slides up on the screen. Steve, if you go to the last slide. We really appreciate your joining us again today for the second session. The third and last session will be August the 10th at 1 p.m. We are going to be talking about achieving the alpha state through meditation, which will tremendously help improve your resilience and be able to deal with all the stresses and adversities of normal life, and certainly now in the atmosphere that we're in right now worldwide with all of the issues going on today. So again, thank you all for joining us. Willie Clark, thank you so much again for your assistance. Steve Hornsby, it's always great to work with you. Thank you so much.
Same here, Butch, and Willie, thanks as well. And thanks to everybody that came in to join us.